So, I'd like to welcome everyone back to the Foundation Year podcast. We ran this last year alongside the Applicant Support Programme. However, this year we are going to be doing a monthly podcast, and this is the first in that series. And much like last year, we're going to talk about UCAS and personal statements, but I thought it'd be a really good opportunity to talk to students who have been through the Foundation Year and are now studying on their undergraduate courses to see how they're getting on and how they're progressing with their degrees. So we'll go around the houses and we'll introduce ourselves. So we'll go with I can see Jaden on my screen first. We'll go to Jaden first. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so hello guys. I'm Jaden. I am a third year history student at Fitzwilliam College.
Fantastic. And next on my screen, I can see Thea.
Hello, I'm Thea. I am currently a second year classics student at Murray Edwards College.
Brilliant. And hopefully I've broken up the students who have the same subject. We'll go to Amy next.
Hi, I'm a third year history student at Gonville and Keys College.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much all for joining me. And we're just going to go through, have a conversation. And it's a great opportunity for our listeners to hear the student voice and to hear your experiences. So I want you to cast your minds back, some of you further back than others. What can you remember about the foundation year? Can you think of any experiences from the foundation year that you think have really helped you with moving on to your undergraduate course? I'm going to go to Amy first.
Yeah, so I remember one of my primary concerns coming to Cambridge generally was workload. I think it's something that's always in everyone's mind. I worried about writing an essay and things like that because anyone that, especially if you do a humanities subject, will know that you have weekly essays. The frequency depends on what subject you do. Some do more than one a week, some less, whatever. But I was definitely worried about my writing skills, and especially as someone that came off a gap year, I did have that fear that I would be a bit rusty and that I might have forgotten some of the more like important things in education in like reading, writing, things like that. I did read and write a bit over my gap year, but like obviously when you're not in formal education, it's a bit different. So that was my primary worry. But thankfully the foundation year did help a lot with that. So on the foundation year, there was quite a few opportunities to do kind of written work and get really good close feedback on that. And whenever I had an issue or a question, I could also always go directly to a staff member and have that answered, which I found incredibly helpful too. So by the time that I moved up to undergrad, I was a lot more confident in my academic skills.
Fantastic. And do we have any other students who had a gap year in before they made their application? Because I believe Thea, you're the other gap year student I have here.
Yeah, so I did my gap year, and I think that's the only reason that I ended up doing the foundation year really, is because I took my gap year because I was kind of unsure where I wanted to go and exactly what I wanted to do. I had kind of an inkling that I wanted to do classics, but I wasn't really sure. So I think that was, what drew me to the foundation year program was when I was researching it on my gap year, the fact that there was so many different areas that I could, start studying and see what really interested me. So I did end up sticking with classics, but I'm really glad that I got the opportunity to study lots of other things on the year as well. I think that was really valuable.
Awesome. And I wonder, Jaden, how did you hear about the foundation year? And also thinking about what Thea said about getting to try lots of different subjects. Did you know 100% what you wanted to study when you did the foundation year? And did that change as you studied the foundation year?
Yeah, so funnily enough, I was also on a gap year when I applied to the foundation year. And no, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And this is actually a big reason as to why I took the gap year. I just wasn't too sure before I was going to go to university. And so what ended up happening was my mum actually found out about the foundation year and then kind of read through the course structure and then told me about the ability to kind of delve into all of these different topics. And so I thought that was quite a good opportunity for me to spend the year developing my skills, developing writing skills, and also just general kind of living at university kind of experience, as well as trying to find out what subjects actually fitted best with my skills and interests. And so, yeah, I think through the process, I went through many different kind of subjects that I liked, but I ended on history, and I think I ended with the right decision.
Fantastic. So, would you all agree that the foundation is a good way of sort of trying out lots of different things and getting lots of skills and things like that? I can see lots of head nodding for those who are listening, and I guess that's a bit of a shout out to the mums, the dads, the parents, the guardians, and the teachers. Um, we're not always pecking you. We are also trying to give you good advice as well. So don't forget that. So that's fantastic to hear. Um, when you think back on some of the skills and habits you picked up on in the foundation year, and we'll go to Thea with this one. Which ones do you think helped the most, and did you think it helped you moving on to your undergraduate course?
Yeah, so with classics, it is quite a language-based degree. But there's also a huge like essay component, so 2,000 word essay every single week. And I would say that learning how to write coursework and how to reference essays, and you know how to stay on top of having like juggling several things at a time. So with multiple supervisions a week, was so helpful for me in that, you know, jump from the foundation year onto classics. So I felt like I was really confident with how to write my my supervision essays every week. And also when it came to my coursework at the end of the year, and equally just being able to juggle multiple supervisions in a week with my language supervisions as well. I've just found it very helpful to be able to do that. And I feel like the foundation year gave me the basis to be able to do that as well.
It's good to hear. So if I gave you a good structure, a good understanding going in, which is a great thing. I wonder, Jaden, if you can cast your mind back to going into the foundation year, how big was the jump, do you think, from school, from college into doing the foundation year?
I think there definitely was a jump, but that's because of the kind of fundamental difference in what you're being asked to do. So you're just being kind of asked to have a deeper understanding. And I think this is also where the foundation is so valuable, because over the course of the year, you do really get to kind of train the way that you think about different things. But yeah, there is a jump, but you're definitely supported. It's designed for you to kind of ease into it and build across the year. And I think the real value lays in the fact that because, as opposed to kind of first year of Tripos, there is more contact hours, for example, you do very much get to develop that sense of the way you're meant to think, the way you're meant to develop arguments and things of that nature. And I think that I really found that in the first year, I had a real kind of good foundation of all of those things, which meant that I hit the ground running, whereas a lot of my peers kind of struggled a little bit in that first year. So yeah.
Fantastic. And Amy, I wonder if you could think, what's the biggest thing that surprised you when you started your degree?
Oh, that's a really good question. I would have to say, um, how much more hands off it is in a good way. I felt that the foundation year, like Jaden said, you do get that close contact hours and support. And I found that I was able to kind of have more time to structure it how I wanted. And there's a lot
Mhm.
more flexibility, for example. So like for example, in second year, I got to pick what my supervision hours were, where it kind of works on a slightly less formal basis, if that makes sense, where your supervisor will email you saying, for example, I have Mondays, Fridays, and Thursdays free. What time would you like to meet? And so, there's a bit more flexibility there, which I think is nice. I think the foundation year is really good because in your first year, you get that close contact and support. And then once you've developed the skills, you can kind of have more choice and it works better in terms of like what you want to do a bit more, if that makes sense.
So I get that. So it's almost it's nice to have that freedom. So it's not a case of less support as you go into your undergraduate, into your degree,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
you have that sort of freedom to move around, and hopefully
yeah.
we've given you some of the tools to help you to be able to do that at that stage. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's exactly it. I was able to, I think in my first year I was still a bit shy when it came to like doing extracurriculars and things, and like the Cambridge scene in general can be quite overwhelming. So it was definitely in my first year of undergrad that I started doing a lot more social things in terms of sports and societies and things like that. So I definitely felt like because I had slightly more time and I was better at time management. One of the things that I personally struggled with was like scheduling and things like that. So I think having had a years of experience of what Cambridge is like, you're able to go forward knowing more of what you want, if that makes sense.
I tell you, it's as you get older, it's a constant battle to try and get your time management and make sure you're organized. I can tell you, it doesn't change, but it's good. It's good that you sort of got those skills and are able to do that. Thinking about the extracurriculars, I always like to ask students, and when I'm going around and seeing what sort of extracurricular activities people are involved in. Um, One I remember from quite early on in my days was someone saying there was a Taylor Swift society that they took part in. I didn't pry any more into that,
That
but
was probably me, actually.
it may may well have been. But my I think my foster daughter would have been a lot more interested if I'd actually brought that up a bit more and found out more information. So I'd like to just go around and hear what sort of extracurricular activities or sports or things that you take part in at Cambridge. We'll go with Jaden first. Oh, looks like
So I
Jaden's there.
think
There we
it's
go.
changed. Oh, okay. I think it's changed over all the weeks, that all the years I've been here. Actually, I think in my let me just list all of them. So I was involved with like student politics, in my college. I was president of the college, so I did that. I did rifling last year, so I do that sometimes. I was involved with theatre as well in my second year, so that's first year of Tripos. I was involved with kind of publicity for theatre. I've been involved with the Cambridge Union as well, being on their committee. So yeah, there's a lot of things to do. There's still things that I want to do. I want to put on a play. I want to do athletics next term. So there's a lot of things to do at Cambridge. There's something for everyone, really.
I think that's one of the amazing things about Cambridge, especially the sort of community. There's so many opportunities to take part in lots of things, and there's so many interests in different areas that people have come from that often you can find anything you're interested in. You usually can find a group of people who are interested in a similar thing. How about you, Thea? Is there anything that you think you'd like to raise or something you think is really interesting in terms of extracurriculars?
Sure, yeah. I think the main thing that I've been involved in, which has only really started this year, is that I've started writing for Varsity, which is the Cambridge student newspaper. So I've been able to be one of the journalists for the features section, which is basically just means I get to interview like different people, come up with article ideas and interview different people about, basically something Cambridge student centric. So I did an article which actually featured a lot of previous foundation year students about nominative determinism in Cambridge. So like students whose names match their degrees. So I know Ollie, who's been on some of the webinars before, like his surname is Heritage, and then so, he does history now. So that was quite cool. Just things like that. But I'm really enjoying that at the moment. And there's also like the social side that goes in with that. So, there's like socials for the for the varsity team to meet and everything. And there's a dinner every year, which I haven't been to yet, but I'm excited to go to at some point.
Amazing. And how about yourself, Amy?
Yeah, so Thea mentioned Varsity. I actually wrote for Varsity for 2 terms. The cool thing about Varsity is there's so many different subsections, and so people will write in one for 1 term and then maybe go to the next. It's definitely a really good thing to do. So yeah, I wrote for Varsity for 2 terms. I also wrote for something called the Cambridge Student, which is another, student-based newspaper. I was able to interview a lot of really interesting people, including one Cambridge alum who won a Nobel Prize. That was definitely quite interesting. And I'm also very creative, so I've done some things in the theatre as well as photography and other things. It turns out sports was not for me. I rode for a term and I didn't like it. But yeah, I definitely do my best to try and experience as much as I can. I also briefly did student politics too, but I think I prefer the more creative stuff.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. So thinking off the back of that, I know there is a big concern, especially from lots of students when they're making their application, about feeling sort of left out or isolated when they come to Cambridge and a feeling of like almost imposter syndrome. Um, I wonder I would like to hear from each of your experiences in terms of how did you find it coming to Cambridge, doing the foundation year? How was that sort of experience for you? Is there a moment like at the college with the support they gave, or a group of people that you've that helped with this? Is this a legitimate concern, I suppose? We'll go to Amy actually first with this one.
Yeah, so Jaden and I, just for some context, were on the first ever cohort, so not that much
Mm,
was known about the course amongst our peers. So it's definitely something you struggle with just in general. I think everyone worries about fitting in when they first come to university. I think the UCS definitely helped a lot for that. For context, the UCS is the University Counselling System. It's free, and at any point, if you just go to the website and you drop them an email saying that you'd like an appointment, they arranged that very quickly. It definitely helped having a professional to talk to. And then outside of that, I think I eventually did find friends that were very understanding and supportive, thankfully. So yeah, there's a mixture of like the more like institutional stuff, like you'll have a tutor and a DOS and pastoral support, but also I found once you find the right friends, it sometimes takes a bit of time for some people, but there is someone for everyone in Cambridge, I think. But yeah.
and it must have been quite daunting for yourself and Jaden being part of the first cohort, because there were no other students who had been through the process that you were going through. So I wonder, Jaden, I do you feel like you're now sort of an elder statesman of the foundation year? Do you feel like you still have contact? Do you speak to any current students, for example, or take part in anything like that?
Yeah, so there is a foundation society where all the foundation students kind of get together across all the different years. And specifically at my college, we now have this kind of system where we adopt the new incoming foundation years. So I know every single foundation year that's at my college from first year, and I'm obviously a third year now. So yeah, we do have that interconnectivity still going strong. I think going back to the imposter syndrome thing, I think yeah, you do very much feel it when you go there, but what you end up realizing is that everyone actually feels the same thing. So I have friends that come from state schools, and they also had massive kind of imposter syndrome when they came, and so everyone feels like you're the only one with imposter syndrome until you kind of speak to the person that lives next to you, and that they're as scared to go to the supervision as you. So I think, as Amy said, I think friends were the really big thing. And over the course of kind of getting to know your friends, you start to realize that like you're not alone. Everyone kind of goes through the same things. And then you start to feel like if everyone else is doubting their place, hey, maybe we just all belong, and like it's actually all fine. So yeah, I think that's the experience I went through.
Almost like we're all in the same boat, we're all having the same experience. So it's almost not different because we're all sharing the same sort of experiences. How about yourself, Thea? How was your experience? Obviously you were not in the first cohort, so you maybe it was a bit of a different experience for yourself.
Yeah, I think Amy and Jaden have done a really good like job at summarizing like kind of the that feeling of imposter syndrome like within the context of Cambridge widely. But I think there's also another kind of like imposter syndrome that's internal to the foundation year, like coming, and I think you both touched on it briefly, but coming in as a foundation year student, there is a slight, you know, when I went in, there was a slight sense of that purely of my own mind that I had created as a foundation year student. But I was really lucky, and I think that the only thing that kind of I received from other people was like lack of knowledge about the foundation year. Like there was never any like never any kind of sense of like, oh, like what are you doing here? Like that classic kind of like imposter syndrome from other people. Like it was purely a lack of knowledge, and people were very willing to learn about the foundation year. And I think now that it's been around for a few years, there is a lot less of that. People kind of go, if you say, oh, I was on the foundation year, or I'm on the foundation year, people are like, oh, nice, cool, I know this, that, and the other person who did the foundation year. So that's really nice. And I think as well, it was really helpful to have another cohort above us to kind of help guide the way through Cambridge. So especially when we had the induction week, I feel like the students from the cohort above us who were on that were really helpful and like guiding us and like helping us be a little bit calmer about the year ahead.
We just had our induction week for our latest cohort actually, and we were at Murray Edwards College, which was good fun. I do like taking part in the induction weeks mainly because I get a chance to meet the new cohort, but also get to see lots of colleges and take part in things like that, which is always really good fun for myself. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up our applicant support program. I'm sure many students will be listening to this, and maybe some even recognize me as I'm always the face on all the webinars. Sorry about that. You also have to deal with me on the podcast. But our applicant support program is designed to help you go through each step of making a good application for the foundation year. We have recently had our first session around the UCAS application and personal statements. So the UCAS application, the deadline for this is a bit earlier this year than it was in previous years. It's the 14th of January this year. Usually it's at the end of January, a little bit earlier this year. And something to consider with the personal statements, they have changed the current format for personal statements. So before, it would have been one long free-form essay. So now it'll be 3 shorter questions, but covering broadly the same information that our panel would have put into their applications. So I think it'd be useful to talk a little bit about the UCAS application and personal statements. And we've already spoken about how you heard about the foundation year. How did you find the UCAS process? Can you remember the UCAS process? Fine if you say not. It's been a couple of years at this stage. But how did you find the UCAS process? We'll go to Jaden first.
Yeah, it's been a few years now, but I remember feeling like I had to kind of really show why I was interested in the subject that I was applying for, even though at the time I wasn't completely like sure on it. But I had to show kind of why I had any kind of interest in that. And I really felt like I had to sell why I specifically, like me, Jaden, I was interested in that. So I think that is really a conversation I had with one of my teachers, which was that, loads of people will talk about this subject and why they love it, but why do you specifically like it? And why do you want to go deeper into it? Why do you want to study at university? So I think those are like the main things that I focused on in my application.
Fantastic. And off the back of that, thinking about teachers as well, Amy, I wonder, can you remember the teacher reference? Do you remember who you asked for a reference or for a statement to go into your application?
Yeah, so I actually applied on a gap year, and you kind of have to be in touch with your old school for certain logistical reasons. But yeah, I actually asked my old history teacher, who was more than willing to do it. I think, unfortunately, one of the things about just inequality in education in general is that the kind of schools people apply to can differ massively from, you might be very lucky and have like a really solid UCAS support teachers at your school and some not so much. So one of the things that I did want to mention is that my teachers were generally good, but I definitely found the monthly webinars on the application process incredibly helpful. They answer most, if not all, of your questions. And I think it's good to have that kind of support and advice coming from, the foundation year team themselves. So I definitely wanted to shout that out.
We'll see if they still feel that way after dealing with me over the next couple of months, Amy. Thea, can you remember asking your teacher for a reference? What sort of things did they put into a reference, or did you have to find someone else to do that reference for you?
Yeah, so I as well was on my gap year when I did. I mean, I did two UCAS applications, 3 actually, including the one during the foundation year. But both of them, I'll probably go for the gap year one because that's when I actually applied for the foundation year. I reached out to my old school. I reached out to my old classics teacher to give me a reference and was like redirected back to our head of sixth form who was in charge of the references and everything. So I don't actually know what was put in my reference. I would love to know to this day kind of what they said. But they had actually been quite good at guiding us kind of through the process as well when I was in sixth form the year before. So I kind of already knew what to expect in that case. And yeah, but again, shout out to the foundation year webinars and to you, Will, for helping us through it.
Oh, I'll start blushing, but I'm sure the teachers clearly must have given a good reference, we hope. If not, they may have handicapped you, and maybe you were just that strong a student that you overcame a bad teacher reference. But clearly, I think they gave a good reference. Can any of you remember writing your personal statement? And what sort of things did you include? I can see Ami's got a hand up. So what can you remember including in your personal statement?
Yes, so I actually did my best to find other successful Oxford history applicants, and I kind of had a look at what kind of thing they wanted. So I first thing for history specific is I tried to niche down my historical interest into like maybe one or two things, and then I read key books kind of around that. So I think I included four books, one documentary, and I had one work experience actually. Initially, I was applying for HISPOL, so I thought shadowing a local counselor would be good. So I kind of did want that balance between, reading and real life experience, but you can do it with just books. And if you're worried about cost, for example, if you go to your local library, that's a really great way to get stuff. Everything that I did was either very, very inexpensive or free, practically. I know cost is a big barrier for some people, and it was definitely for me. So what I did was I tried to, because I did history A level, I talked a bit about my skills using primary sources and that, and then I kind of summarized my readings and what they taught me, and I tried to analyze some of the things the historians in the books talked about, and I think that must have come across well, if I'm here.
I would assume so. And also, you saying about those sort of things like finding reading lists, finding books, super curriculars, and things like that. Going into
So
UCAS fair mode, there's a really good list on the Cambridge website of things that are free to access. So if you go into any course page, go to useful links, and then there's usually a section called Improve My Application. And if you click on that, and it's not very clear, it should just say in big flashing letters super curriculars, in my opinion, because in there it gives every single subject and a list of books, podcasts,
yes.
materials, really useful if you're looking for stuff to do.
Yeah, and I believe if you type in Cambridge University Supercurricular, a massive PDF of that should come up of
There
all
we
of them
go.
in one. That's definitely helpful as a starting point. I know it can seem very overwhelming to think, oh my God, I have to show everything ever, but you can just do a few books and try and read them in depth. And what did you learn? Answer some basic questions, and I think you should have a strong starting point.
I know Jade and I have had a conversation before about supercurriculars and reading books. So what did you include in terms of your reading, Jaden? And any advice you'd give on supercurriculars?
Yeah, so I think my approach that I took, which was that I focused more on kind of depth rather than breadth. So I think I only referenced three things or two books and one podcast, I think. Mine was about politics. So it was about my reaction to something Boris Johnson said when lockdown was announced. And so then I read three things afterwards. And I just focused on kind of linking them together and trying to make them fit why I wanted to then go on to study politics. So I think don't feel like you should like have to read 20 different books. Like Amy said, like you don't need 50 different books. It's more about what you say about the books than how many of them that you read. I think that's a number one big thing. I think another big thing is that you should also try and kind of enjoy the process, because I think if you read books with the sole intent of putting them in your personal statement, maybe you don't actually get that kind of insight or that motivation that then goes on to really make your personal statement and a joy to read, or makes it interesting for the person reading it. So really do try and enjoy the process of kind of writing your personal statement and reading the things in it. That's what I'd say.
Fantastic. And I can see Amy has a point she'd like to add to that.
Yeah, so I think a lot of teachers also mention the balance between supercurriculars and extracurriculars. So your supercurriculars will be like your academic things like books and documentaries, and then your extracurriculars maybe a sport or an instrument. And I remember when I was applying, there was kind of this pressure to do absolutely everything. Like you had to be a debating champion and be a on like your school journalist, and you had to do like five sports, and that's absolutely just not true. And that's a common question I get all the time. I think one or two extracurriculars is good, but if you don't have any, it's not going to massively disadvantage your application. Rather, do things that you actually enjoy and care about, rather than doing it because you think it'll look good and be impressive. Like I did one sport and I wrote maybe two articles for my school newspaper, and that was it. And I remember thinking this is so unimpressive, and it genuinely didn't make a huge difference to my application, I don't think, because my academic side was obviously the main focus. I just wanted to add that.
think that's a really good point. Also, something that Jaden alluded to as well. I would never recommend to a student to read a book because they think it's going to make a strong application if they hate the thing they're reading, or they find it boring, or they can't legitimately show interest and passion in what they're reading. If it's a case of you're reading something you think this is utter dross, I can't keep reading this, find something else. There'll be something that is an interest and of passion to you, and you'll be able to speak more passionately in your application off the back of that. So don't try to read something because you think it's going to look impressive. Read something because it actually resonates with you and it's something you find interesting. So, and you saying about the extracurriculars as well. I would agree with that. Extracurriculars, they're a great thing to have and they're really useful, but sometimes their value can be overstated, I think, at times. Jaden, I can see you've got a hand up.
Yeah, I just quickly wanted to say that I put none in my application. And I even spoke with the person that read my application and then interviewed me. And he just told me that like, he's just thinking about people he wants to teach history to. So whether I was a striker at school, like, he doesn't really care. He just really wants to know what I read and what I thought about it. So, but do include it though. It does show that you're a well-rounded individual, things of that nature.
We didn't want to know your goals and your assists for the last season, Jaden. No. Thea, I wonder, can you remember what was the hardest part about writing your personal statement? How did you get started when you started trying to write it?
I think honestly, the way I started my personal statement was chucking a bunch of ideas down on the page and just reading through it again and again and going, what is the common thread here? Like what is the common thread that kind of demonstrates that I, deserve to be, picked for interview or whatever. And so, or like what makes my application interesting, what makes me, seem like an interesting person, I suppose. So that's probably not the right way to say it. Like what makes me a good candidate, to be at the university. And I think I started with what I enjoyed in A level. And then, I was like, what's really interesting me in classics that I'm studying at A level, and then I just expanded out of that. And also I kind of thought about the deficiencies like in what I was studying. So I was like, yes, I'm interested in this, but this is missing from the course and this is what I'm interested in. And so like went outside of that, kind of criticized what wasn't in the curriculum, and then was like demonstrated, my interest in it and why I found it interesting as well. So I think starting with like, what you already have with your A levels is a really good point, but then expanding out of that, either, going into more focus than was in my A level, syllabus, or kind of exploring what maybe, I wanted to be studying rather than what I was. Yeah. That's what I would say. That's how I started anyway.
That's good advice. Amy, do you have some advice for us as well?
Yes, I know a lot of people do worry about the word count because it isn't actually that long when you think about it. And I've definitely seen some applications, because I tutor on the side, of people that almost try and do too much and they list all of it out and none of it is connected. And I definitely think sometimes people fall in the trap of doing too many things and not enough being pointed enough in enough detail. So I think there were one or two things that I could have added to mine, but it didn't make sense for me to, because they would just be there as an add-on with no kind of emphasis or kind of further explanation. So one of the things that I did that I found incredibly helpful was I started out with one book, and then there were a few historians that this book constantly cited. So I went to the bibliography and I said, okay, now that I've read this, I should read maybe one or two of the other historians mentioned so that it can be a common thread. And then, because it was kind of a historical debate between the two, I kind of put in my opinion as to where I stood. And I think that was a good way to get in analysis and also that common thread that Thea talked about. Otherwise, it's a bunch of unconnected things and it might not read as coherently as possible.
And plus, the amount of personal statements everyone's reading, you want to make it quite interesting and engaging. So that's quite good advice, I think. I'll also be interested to see with the changes UCAS are making with the free question format, if that's going to help to sort of focus some of these ideas and maybe help with that sort of feeling as well. But we're coming toward the end of our time together. So I would like to wrap up by asking a final question to each of you. And the question is going to be, what would you say to someone who is unsure whether they should apply for the foundation year? What would be your guidance on that? We'll go to Thea first.
I think there's a lot of advice that I could give, and the only one that really matters is to just do it. Because, you know, either you'll be successful or you won't. There's no point depriving yourself of an opportunity that really is amazing before you even, before you even get out the gate. So my advice would be, if you're on the fence about it, you get 5 UCAS options, unless that's changed as well. So the foundation year may as well be one of them, because it really, really is worth it.
Fantastic. And how about yourself, Jaden?
I can't really say much more succinctly than Thea just said it, but like, you shouldn't deprive yourself of great opportunities because you aren't sure that you might get it or not. If an amazing opportunity exists and you have the capability to apply for it, you should just do it. Any advice is kind of irrelevant apart from that. You should just try. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. And if you do get it, maybe you'll be on a live stream and a podcast telling other people to do it as well. So
Don't say that, Jaden. That's going to put them off. They're all going to be running away now. Amy, hopefully you can finish us off with one last good point. What would you say to
Yes.
someone who's unsure?
I agree with everything everyone has said so far. My other point is, consider this. I didn't think I would get in, and I did. And there's probably quite a few people listening to this who probably don't think they'll get in, but they probably will. And again, it comes down to chance and opportunity, and why deprive yourself? I mean, it's a 1-year fully funded course. When are you ever going to get a great opportunity like that again? I think it's such a rare thing. And even if for whatever reason after that year you decide Cambridge isn't for you, the skills that you like develop here will benefit you wherever and whatever you go on to do. So it's not purely just a get into Cambridge thing. It's also like it has wider benefits wherever you go, I think. So yeah, definitely apply.
And that's all for the Foundation Year podcast. A huge thanks again to our student panel for sharing their stories and their advice. If you're applying this year, remember we have had a session about UCAS and personal statements. Now, you can revisit this. There will be a link in the description, or you can go to our events page on the website. Here, you can access and sign up for the Applicant Support Programme and access the recordings and the podcast. So a great way to revisit the sessions we have had, especially around UCAS and personal statements. Our next session will be around the FY SAC. This is an additional questionnaire where we gather lots of information about our prospective students. So a really valuable experience, especially if you want to make an application. It will take you step by step through that process. Don't forget the UCAS deadline is the 14th of January at 6 p.m. So you'll need to make a submission by this date. But if you're taking part in the Applicant Support Programme, you'll be able to follow along with that. Thank you again for joining us in this podcast. This is the first in our now monthly Foundation Year podcast. In the future, we're going to hope to get on lots of different guests, including teaching staff, your own teachers, current students, previous students, and just a wide range of people who can give you an experience and idea of Cambridge, but also the foundation year. We hope to see you in the next episode. Have a wonderful day.